Hello, this is Nick from Breaker Press Games, and I wanted to share with you my campaign diary, my campaign journal from session number 1 of the Jenulane campaign that we started 2 weeks ago with session 0. And so just to give you a brief overview, in the last episode we had set up characters, we had rolled up characters. We used the occupation chart from Maddog Zine. And I added in some new stuff from the Standard Courier Volume 1 that I had drafted up laws that were on the books, so to speak, in the Stanford area, the region around the Tower of Jenulane and the region around Stanford. And so I had each of my players roll a random crime that they had committed, and then I cross-referenced it with a list of punishments. And I then dropped them in the dungeon beneath the Tower of Jenulane, and that was going to be their starting point. At the end of session 0, I asked them kind of casually whether they kind of saw this as more of a Dirty Dozen or a prison break type scenario, and people said prison break, so that's what we ran with. And so just in case people had a change of heart, I did have some stuff prepared if they decided to go the Dirty Dozen route when the moment came, but instead, or I shouldn't say instead, but along with that, I made sure to be prepared mentally as to, okay, how is this going to play out? How is that initial prison break going to go? Not knowing exactly how I was going to run it after. The only thing that I had as a basis is that in the previous campaign, the players had spent a lot of time in the Tower of Jenulane, the rooms and the structure and the important NPCs, all of that information I already had committed. So I was going to be able to sandbox my way through this and just adapt to whatever they threw my way, because I knew the material pretty well. And so the other thing that was a surprise in this is we had a guest appearance. I gave a breakdown of all the characters that were rolled up in session 0, but we were going to do something a little different this time around, because somebody, one of our players, was not going to be available on Wednesday, so we did the rare thing and we moved this week's session to Thursday. And there's one person that's on the email chain who had participated in the first couple of games, the first couple of sessions of our last campaign, who's still on the Facebook chain. A guy named Cole from Chicago, and he saw that we were going to be playing on a Thursday instead of Wednesday. He's like, can I join in? And I was like, absolutely. And so I had him roll up a couple of occupations, and then I rolled up some characters for him and had characters ready for him in the roll VTT, so that once we got going, he would have characters ready to go. His two characters, one was a guard who was being imprisoned for slander, and the other was why am I blanking? I think it was a locksmith. Yes, a locksmith. And the locksmith was guilty of disorder. And so his two characters, I kept them off screen at the start and went with exactly how things were going to play out. Originally, all of the characters that were in the initial session 0 were all in one cell. They have communal cells underneath the Tower of Jenulane for debtors, generally speaking, and people that had low priority crimes. And then the one character that had tried to burn down the Tower of Jenulane, Vlad, one of Bobby's characters, because his crime was so serious, his character was in a separate cell. And so this is how I set things up, and then I gave them a moment to kind of go through what they wanted to do and kind of look around their surroundings to see what they could pull off. And so Alex was the first to actually say, hey, I want to look around the room and see what I could use to get out of here. And I mentioned that there was a couple of loose stones and I was referring to loose stones like these cracked bricks over here. The idea that somebody had tried to whittle their way through the mortar between stones in the dungeon in order to have something that they could brain a guard with, but probably chickened out or died before that happened. They successfully got the stone loose. I think Alex interpreted what I was saying as like loose gravel, but I'm not in Alex's head, so I don't know. I mentioned that there were a few long chains that would be used for manacling people, but since they were mostly low, non-violent criminals, they were not chained up. But those chains are still attached to the wall, but they could be used to choke somebody out or something like that. I didn't get into detail on that. Let them come up with their own solutions. And then a bucket full of excrement that was overflowing. And so, loose stones? No. Long chains? No. What's the weapon of choice? The bucket of excrement. And so one person, Dana's Glover, Stanford, grabs the bucket of excrement, and Alex basically pulls up a bunch of loose dust and sand or whatever, grime from the ground. And when I go through the moment where the guards are bringing down two new prisoners, Cole's characters, I play up the slow turning of the key, the opening of the door. What are you guys gonna do? And so Alex immediately throws his grit into the eyes of the guard, successfully hits. I make a save, fail the save, and the guard is now blinded for two rounds. And so Cole's characters immediately try to push over the guard. One of Cole's characters actually ends up knocking themselves prone, trying to knock over the guard, and then everything spirals out of control in the best way possible. I see that the guard, and I had talked about how the Tower of Jenulane has been facing issues of desertion amongst their ranks and what have you. I had already planted that seed, and so this guard, seeing a bunch of rioting prisoners who are not manacled in place, immediately turns to run. This is where the bucket of excrement comes in. The guard has distance upon them, and so he is running up the stairs out of the dungeon, and Stanford comes running up with the bucket of excrement. It's sloshing all over the place, and tries to throw it all over the stairs in an effort to get the guard to slide out of control. This is where things start to get really exciting in my eyes, because it ended up evolving into this running combat that spread from the cells through the corridor that all the cells are off of, up the stairs and into the nave at the base of the Tower of Jenulane. So, what happens? The exciting points is that in all of this action, and the guard escaping, one of the characters, Tom Branson, he grabs the keys from the guard that's blinded and starts opening cells. People are running out of the cells, and the PCs, they see that off to the side there is a rack of implements of justice. This is an organization dedicated to Gorhan the Helmed Vengeance. In the pantheon of DCC, Gorhan is meant to be, I believe, the brother of Justitia, and Justitia is the goddess of justice. But Gorhan, even though some of the stuff that I read indicates that Gorhan is more of a benevolent justice deity, when you're called the Helmed Vengeance, that's just not how I'm going to play you. And so in my setting, I think of him as being like if there were lawful neutral in DCC, that Gorhan the Helm Vengeance is definitely lawful neutral, and is the type of god that you steal, you lose a hand. You are guilty of slander. Oh, maybe we should split your tongue. I definitely like the dark angle of Gorhan the Helm Vengeance, and I know my players do, because how Gorhan originally got pulled into all of my setting in the first place is because I gave a loon, Shane's character, in our first campaign, a list of deities that they could worship, and who was the one that they chose? Gorhan the Helm Vengeance. Why? Because he's Gorhan the Helm Vengeance. A name just kind of spells it out for you. And so I definitely saw this as the type of dungeon that would have torture devices. And there's also a shrine that is right in front of the table used for dispensing justice. This is where we suddenly get into a surprise Pulp Fiction type moment, where my players, I didn't have written just other than implements of justice or what have you. I didn't have the weapons or the implements spelled out, and my players each referred to it as the torture closet, even though there is no closet, it's just right there. But they started grabbing items, and one person grabs a poker, one takes a branding implement. They passed over the flogger. I was kind of disappointed in that. Somebody took a fistful of nails, somebody took a knife, and somebody took a wooden mallet. And so all of these were taken in succession, and it definitely, like, not in rapid succession, but there was, like, actions in between different people doing different things as they got released or what have you. And so there was this, like, shopping moment, just like Bruce Willis in the pawn shop in Pulp Fiction, and it was great. And so while all this is happening, Tom Branson, one of Dana's characters, who was a house servant that had been imprisoned for trying to unionize the other house servants. This is where that extra tiny bit of detail just made the moment. Because Tom Branson, he opens up one of the cells full of debtors. There's 5 debtors in there, and he wants them to riot with them, to engage in insurrection. And so he says that he's going to give a rousing speech and, try and get them to... I'm like, okay, so give me your rousing speech. And so it was short and sweet, but it was totally your movie-based, your cinematic, raise your fist and resist type of moment. He rolls the dice. He rolls a 17. All right, you've got all of these debtors all cheering that they're going to take down the oppressors in the Tower of Jenulane, take down the nobility. And so they join him, and he starts leading them up the stairs and into the nave. This is where that running battle comes back. And so Maddog, one of Shane's characters, he is obsessed with the idea of pulling some Macho Man Randy Savage type moves and wants to body splash one of the guards. He succeeds, flattens the guard, gets up and immediately throws up his fingers, Randy Savage style, and the moment starts to shift, because now they're all piling into the nave, and I'm like, okay, this is where I need to adapt to the circumstances, knowing how the tower is laid out. And first, I roll a random die roll for how many guards come down, and I believe the number was 3, and so I had the Squire of Glendale Jenulane Brennan come running down the stairs with a longsword, and he's got 2 guards with him. And combat ensues, and Alex pulls a maneuver, ends up tabletopping. If you don't know what tabletopping is, it's where one person gets behind a person and another person pushes over the person. He succeeds in pulling off this maneuver. Brennan falls, his sword gets dislodged, the guards start to get attacked, lives are being lost, and then all of the PCs come running in, and then followed by Tom Branson and his wave of peasants. So I have, on the next round, another round of guards come piling down. I roll a 6. Chaplain Dermond, the head chaplain of the Tower of Jenulane of the Knightly Order, and 5 guards come running down the stairs, and I have Chaplain Dermond give a dramatic demand for all of the fighting to stop, or face wrath, and he's flanked by the guards, and other than one person who feigns that they are going to stop fighting, everybody just keeps fighting. And so one of the things, I'm going to do a little aside. Chaplain Dermond, I tried to, when I created the Protectorate of Jenulane text and created the NPCs, I wanted to have all of the PCs NPCs have a bit of depth, but also have a reason why more powerful characters would also not be able to run things. And it's funny because I created this character a year ago, totally forgetting that there was a similar thing in The Secret of Bone Hill, an adventure that I owned in my teens, and the idea of having a character that is very powerful but are either compromised by drink or dementia or what have you, and so the 2 main NPCs in the Tower of Jenulane, Glendel Jenulane, the Master at Arms, and the House Noble. He is just a raging alcoholic who really has no interest in leading or being. He's a shadow of the man that he once was. And then similarly, Chaplain Dermond was the Fist of Righteousness, and that's one of his buzzwords that or buzz lines that he likes to use. But he has suffered so much damage from combat that he suffers from dementia, and so my players had only ever experienced, Chaplain Dermond with moments of lucidity, but often, diverting into, repetition and saying the same things again. I try to convey his dementia with respect and dignity. He is, as I said, one of my favorite characters because he has depth, and you feel for him as long as he is played with emotion. But in this moment, this is the first time that they've actually seen him rain fire upon people and have that you get to sense his power. And so he brings down the bolt from the blue, and ends up incapacitating one of the PCs. Maddog, in the swirling melee, ends up being taken down and is knocked unconscious because there was subdual damage involved. And then one of Alex's characters just is outright killed by a guard, and so everything seems like it's shifting towards the guards, and that they are just going to end up becoming imprisoned again. And that's when Tom Branson's uprising strikes. Tom Branson comes running into the nave with the peasants, and I start rolling dice for the peasants attacking the guards. And of the peasants' attacks, I roll 5d20, and it's like there's a 1, but there's like a 14, a 17, a 16, and a 20. And so four of the guards that are up at the top of the stairs all get slaughtered. The PCs are trying to do their best to contribute to the fight, but really none of them is quite as effective as these 5 peasants that come charging up with Tom Branson. The Fist of Righteousness brings down the bolt from the blue. Everything is happening. Things are spiraling out of control, and now the situation is shifting. And that's when we go back to the Fist of Righteousness, Chaplain Derman. And for the second time that he tries to cast bolt from the blue, he fails. And so I treated this as a moment where his dementia kicked in, and so he like forgets the blessing as he, the hymn or whatever, as he is reciting it, and fails to cast the bolt. And so, seeing this, Brennan, the squire, yells for them to start raising the gate, because there's still more guards up above to raise the gate. And so the gate starts to raise. And this is where things get really interesting and unexpected, because I expect, because this was a prison break, that my players would, Indiana Jones style, roll out from under the portcullis and escape, and they don't. They stay and fight. And so, okay, we go into the next round of combat. Things are still staying in the advantage of the players, and they could easily escape. And this is when I have Glendale Jenulane drunkenly come down the stairs with a flagon of ale, demand that everybody stop fighting, and say, "We could use fighters like you." And the fight stops. And other than 2 people, Shane's other character, Ebobo, was dragging Maddog out from under the now that the portcullis was like chest level, starts pulling Maddog out into the night, and everybody else surrenders, and including the peasants who essentially take the knee when Tom Branson takes the knee. And so what started as a prison break now is the Dirty Dozen. It took a really unexpected twist. And I worry that because Alex was one of the first people to decide that he was going to stay and fight, stay and fight with the tower, the powers that be at the Tower of Jenulane. And I think that's because I think he thinks that's what I wanted, but I wanted the players to do whatever the players wanted. And so I hope that's not what happened. I hope that the decision that was made was based upon their own free will, because if they want to be crazy insurrectionists, they should have been crazy insurrectionists. It's not for me to determine who they are, who and what they are going to be. So wrapping this up, some of the lessons that I learned from this, when having a large combat, something that I never used to do. It's funny because with miniature games, you roll 20 dice at once for your 20 shots from your Space Marines, and in D&D, I was used to rolling D20 for an attack, D20 for an attack, D20 for an attack. With the peasants, I rolled all 3 D20s at once and all 4 D6s at once for their wounds, and I just quickly allocated them to the guards. Dead, 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 and the combat moved so much faster as a result. This was essentially a 2-hour running combat, that could have really bogged down play if I was meticulous about it and just sweeping rolls. So perfect. I'm so glad I did it that way. The other thing that I took away from this is that one, I think that the tower has a lot of flexibility. The Tower of Jenulane has a lot of flexibility. I tried to think about when I wrote the sandbox portion of the Protectorate of Jenulane. What were some of the different ways that the tower could be used for adventure hooks? Kind of the tower as a character. Because it's a place and it's a living, breathing place. And I think that something like this prison break totally works with the content that has been written for that. The final thing is that Shane, afterwards, because Shane always wants to do something new and interesting and exciting with his characters, reaches out to me and he says to me, "Hey, I'm kind of surprised that DCC doesn't have like a barbarian or a beast man and in third-party products there are all of those things, but he really wants to be like a wrestler, like unarmed combat type of guy, but not a monk, more a fisticuffs kind of guy." And so I did a little bit of research and I started hammering out a bruiser character class just for Shane, and we did some back and forth today, and I think it's coming together pretty well, and hopefully I will be able to share that sometime next week, and people will share it on Patreon, and people will hopefully like it and enjoy it, and give feedback, because that's the most important thing, is getting feedback and being able to see how we can make these things better. So that is my wrap up of episode 1 of we'll call it Prisoners of Jenulane. It was a really exciting and fun time. I am so thankful that Cole was able to jump in and participate. It gave a good setup for the prison break itself, and it was a good time, and I hope this was enjoyable to listen to. I know it was enjoyable to play and to record. As always, thank you for supporting indie games and indie game designers. This is Nick from Breaker Press Games signing out. All right, bye.